my name is Avneet Thapar, and I have with myself Matthew Errett. We're from the Committee for the Republic of Canada, and we have a very short but good on-the-ground report from our intervention here over the past 3 days. We have been intervening in the NDP party national convention being held in Montreal, where we've had people inside organizing a lot of the NDP convention members here on the reality of the global political situation, which is that it's at the brink of complete meltdown. We've also had over the past 3 days a lot of teams outside with huge banners calling for Glass-Steagall in Canada, giving out hundreds of leaflets to everybody who's been coming to the convention, and generating a really good discussion, a really serious discussion, which is otherwise lacking throughout the convention. So, Matthew, what's your sense so far of the whole convention so far?
Well, yeah, just to give people a clear sense that this is really a very unique opportunity, because you have, in the course of the recent 4 days, we've had about 4,000 to 5,000 delegates from all across Canada, including members of parliament, MPPs from various provinces, all congeal here in Montreal in order to discuss and vote up a policy platform that the NDP party will represent. Because right now, the NDP is going through a bit of an identity crisis. And the interesting, just to sort of set the groundwork here a little bit, just for our viewers especially, the NDP has historically been a party of, labor, of union rights, social justice, things like that. And since the previous leader, Jack Layton, has died, there's been a increasing transformation on the part of those financial networks controlling the banking institutions internationally from London to bring in an Obama-styled identity into the party, to dismantle a lot of the labor, to bring in an idea of pure ecology, pure carbon reduction, anti-population policies, which are coming in the form of its new leader, Mulcair. And so what we've been doing with our members outside, our contacts organizers on the inside as well, has been to shape the entire dynamic of what the discussion is going to be on the inside of this convention. And we've done a pretty decent job, but I think the thing that both you and myself, as well as our other members, have noticed is that there is not a very great familiarity with the fact that the financial system internationally is collapsing.
Yeah, that I would say that ignorance also stems from the ignorance of their party leader, where yesterday and day before, Thomas Mulcair's speech was completely governed by everything that the Queen loves, which is saving the environment. Be it a question on policy, or saving jobs, or saving unions. He would just figure a way to tie it to ultimately, we gotta save the environment, and that's the basis of of the party's political platform, which really makes it very indistinguishable from the Liberals at that point.
Well, that's right, and what you have increasingly is an amalgamation of the center and the left in Canada to serve as a sort of counterpoint to the complete right-wing policies coming out of the current Harper regime, which are purely monetarist, purely free market, the sort of embodiment of everything wrong with globalization. So what you have is the population are being played like a violin right now into extremes. And what we're seeing, and this is, again, our job has been to really bring the focus down to the bail-in regimes being set up in Canada, like we've documented in previous reports, that are a global standard, as we saw in Cyprus's case, and we've been introducing this. We haven't found that many delegates in general knew that the bail-ins were part of the Canadian budget. We have found a great receptivity, especially with the MPs, many of whom want to meet with us and know more about how did the Glass-Steagall, in Canada it was called the Four Pillars. They want to know, how did this work? How will this be able to function again in the context of the current breakdown? So they have been very receptive to our policy message, but in terms of what was already there to work with, what has not been very much. There's been very local, the problem is very local community thinking, single-issued orientations, and then very broad, homogenous, like you were bringing up with Mulcair's speech, very broad, brush-stroked, ambiguous, vague messages of the general welfare spoken in the same breath as you're talking about policies which are going to destroy the general welfare through, well, environmental protection seems like a very good thing. Indeed, it's not easy to refute that we need a clean earth. But when you look at the actual policies of massive carbon reductions, cap and trades, the wind and solar energy policies that these guys are actually going for, what you're seeing is their idea of a Green New Deal after after all is said and done, is actually going to reduce the population's productive potential, not just in Canada, but bring about a genocide internationally. And that's something that we've been really hammering at to get people to recognize that if they don't resist this takeover, this infiltration of these new ideologies, then the NDP is finished and Canada is finished.
Yeah, that's something I also found lacking was, there is all these panels set up on the, about giving free education or giving fair education to the Aboriginals, creating jobs, but if you're not taking on the banks, the big banks, and in Canada we only have like 6 banks which run the whole nation, and if you're not talking about this giant parasite, which is the reason why you're having absolutely no growth, there's no point in having any little issue discussions. But what we also saw, Matthew, was there are, even among the general members here, let alone the MPs, there is a sense about where the world is headed. And also what we saw yesterday, for example, was a very clear anti-Obama sentiment within the blue-collar layers of the party. Would you talk to them? So why don't you tell us more about it?
Absolutely. Well, we can even put a little bit of footage here spliced into the video that we're giving, but what we've had has been a large faction, primarily the socialist-oriented faction, with occupying the different labor groups. That doesn't mean that they're ideologically purely socialist, but it does mean that this faction does represent the blue-collar labor workers, and there has been a counteroffensive made on this faction to, one, block the changing of the Constitution, which is something that will be voted upon today. That is the Constitution of the NDP party, to replace all references to social justice, and introduce in its stead eco-protection or things of that sort. This is going to be voted on in the next couple of hours. Our movement in our chapter in Vancouver in 2011 was able to intervene well enough and in time at that NDP convention in order to stop this reform of the Constitution from occurring then. We don't know what's going to happen this time, but these same groups have also come out very vigorously against Obama's representative, who gave a speech yesterday to essentially brainwash the delegates here regarding how do you recruit a society to your policies without actually having any message of substance, just kind of like exactly what he did in 2009 and 2012. There was a good intervention made in the General Assembly by a few of these people who pointed out the Wall Street connections, the continuation of the Bush-Cheney policies, which again created a really useful tension in the general 5,000 people or 4,000 or 5,000 people who were there, even though their motion to shut down the Obamaton fellow was rejected. However, the tension was put in place. A second thing, which was a good intervention, and again, this is the video that we'll splice in here, featured a grouping of these, a big banner that was unveiled yesterday saying "Stop Obama's Drone Wars" in French and English, with about 9 people holding them, all again exposing the fact that we shouldn't be, the Canadian population is not going to benefit by having a Wall Street apparatus, Orwellian puppet like Obama coming in telling us how to reform the political system of Canada.
Right.
Sorry guys, would you mind if I asked you a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't mind? Okay, so this is quite the intervention that you guys are pulling off. Why
do you say it's quite the intervention?
Well, it catches the eye.
In that sense, yes, I agree with you. It certainly does.
What made you come out today, right before Mulcair was about to speak to?
Well, we are with Socialist Action of the NDP, and we were just upstairs, and we have our own Socialist Caucus forums upstairs. We have just come down now because everyone is going back into the convention hall. So we, before we go back in, we had our banner up early this morning.
Okay.
And we've been in the convention hall, of course, all day, like everybody else. Then we have our forums. We come down, we show the banner again before we go back in. Now ask this gentleman something.
And this protest is directed against inviting Jeremy Bird, who is the campaign manager for Democratic Party, a party of the Wall Street, and we think NDPers have nothing to learn from the campaign manager of the Party of the Wall Street. This is a party that is established by the working classes and the oppressed and dispossessed.
And it also must be noted that it's not just this one party which is devoid of any reality most of the time. It is also you had a chance, for example, yesterday to talk to Mark Garneau face to face and about briefing him on the whole bail-ins and the whole Cyprus situation and that coming to Canada very, very soon. What was that like?
Well, yeah, that was interesting because, as you know, Mark Garneau was the first Canadian in space, which you'd think would give him a certain amount of credibility, and it does. I mean, having an engineer is an aerospace engineer and an astronaut is an MP is a rare and generally a good thing. But just to show, as indicative of the problem psychologically in all parties, is even a fellow like this, who, upon being briefed about bail-ins, of which he did not know a single thing, right? Upon being briefed about this and being offered a dossier by our members, was very thankful until simply hearing the name LaRouche itself triggered a complete emotional reaction in him where he essentially dropped all of the dossier with all of the information that he was very thankful of regarding what is this bail-in regime, how does Canada stand up to this, which is in the general welfare. He literally dropped it. And shut down completely psychologically and emotionally. So what you have is a complete tendency towards populism in these parties, which is destroying the society. Rather than standing up for what's true, what you have is in the midst of the fire, people are literally still going with the popular line of there is no fire, there's no such thing as fire extinguishers, that's not popular, it's not going to get us elected, so we have to just maintain the status quo. But we're on the verge of World War III. The people coming in with the Obama drone wars banner was a nice little reminder of that. We're in the midst of the biggest economic breakdown of human civilization, and unless these guys break with their traditions and move away from, because even in the Liberal Party as well as in the NDP, we've had a certain openness to bank reform, declaring identifying the hypocrisies of the current derivatives bubbles that are melting down, the lack of social justice. So in terms of identifying the problem, we've had an okay receptivity in a lot of these sort of left and center parties. But when it comes down to solution time, what we've seen is a complete train wreck where both on the Liberals and on the NDP, you have an idea of a complete lack of understanding of physical economy, so that when they talk again about New Deal, a Green New Deal for the 21st century, like Joe Stiglitz gave a certain presentation in that orientation yesterday, or Thomas Mulcair again yesterday too, you have something which will effectively reduce the human population down to levels that were demanded by Her Empress Queen Elizabeth, her royal consort Philip, on numerous occasions throughout the decades, to less than 1 billion. And that cannot be done. As much as these people want to think of themselves as Democrats doing things in a democratic way, you can't go for mass genocide in a democracy. It requires a system of global governance, global dictatorship of some sort, with an illusion of democracy at that point.
That's pretty good. I think we can conclude at this point, and strongly, but I would urge the viewers to strongly look at our website, go on our website, read the material and share it with everybody you know, especially the appeal for Glass-Steagall, which we are circulating all over Canada. Sign it, send it to us, and so that we can hand deliver it to your MP in Ottawa, because we are the only movement in Canada who is organizing this fight beyond party lines. and challenging people whether are you going to stand up for truth and justice, or are you just going to be populist and lead everybody over the cliff? So the appeal is linked below the video. Take a look at it, sign it, make everybody you know sign it, send it to us, get active with us, because we need Glass-Steagall in Canada. This is not just about reforming a bunch of, big banks. This is about sovereignty. This is about creating a better future for Canada based on economic sovereignty and scientific progress. So with that, I think thanks a lot for watching. Go on our website, contribute to us, contact us, and have a good day. Thanks. Convention so far.
Well, yeah, just to give people a clear sense that this is really a very unique opportunity, because you have, in the course of the recent 4 days, we've had about 4,000 to 5,000 delegates from all across Canada, including members of parliament, MPPs from various provinces, all congeal here in Montreal in order to discuss and vote up a policy platform that the NDP party will represent. Because right now, the NDP is going through a bit of an identity crisis. And the interesting, just to sort of set the groundwork here a little bit, just for our viewers especially, the NDP has historically been a party of, labor, of union rights.
My name is Avneet Thapar, and I have with myself Matthew Errett. We're from the Committee for the Republic of Canada, and we have a very short but good on-the-ground report from our intervention here over the past 3 days. We have been intervening in the NDP party national convention being held in Montreal, where we've had people inside organizing a lot of the NDP convention members here on the reality of the global political situation, which is that it's at the brink of complete meltdown. We've also had over the past 3 days a lot of teams outside with huge banners calling for Glass-Steagall in Canada, giving out hundreds of leaflets to everybody who's been coming to the convention, and generating a really good discussion, a really serious discussion, which is otherwise lacking throughout the convention. So, Matthew, what's your sense so far of the whole